Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Laura Vitek. I'm the mayor of the city of St. Charles. I've been mayor for 3 years, and prior to that, I was an alderperson. My background is, this is not my full-time job. So I am an executive director of a foundation for a corporation that's Delta Dental, and my work has always been in public service and or giving back to the community. And so as such, this is one of the things I know my council members and I have wanted to do to share a little bit about what we're doing in the city and give back a lot of the information and have a morning with you all. So the format for today will be, we're just gonna go through a whole ton of information. We're probably not gonna hit on everything. I know Ed Marth was here and he already asked a question that's not in the presentation. So we'll go through as much as we can, as quickly as we can, so that you all have an opportunity to answer or to ask some questions. We'll save all the questions till the end of the presentation. Before we get rolling with information, I do want to introduce a bunch of people that are here today. So will all my city council members that are here stand please for a moment? You probably had an opportunity to talk with them at the very beginning. Ward 1, we have both Mark Folks and Ron Slokaitis. Ward 2, Jamie Munns, Ryan Bongard. Ward 3, we have Bob Gem. Paul Lencioni is not here today. Ward 4, we have David Petrilla. Brian Werball is not here today. And Ward 5, we have Ed Besner and Steve Weber, and he is not here today. So thank you all for coming. A lot of what you'll see up here, most everything, is part of their work they've been doing as a group, all of us have been doing over the last few years. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our team of directors. And they are here because I'm sure a lot of the questions you will have will likely be answered by them today. And so I'd like to introduce all of them and my team. First, I'll introduce Lisa Garhan. She's responsible for this event today. Thank you, Lisa. And Marjana Sheets, she's our admin, and I think she's out there, but she's the one who greeted you this morning. In front here, we have City Administrator Heather McGuire, Economic Development Director Derek Conley, Russ Colby, Community Development Director, Finance Director Bill Hanna, Public Works Peter Sir, Chief Swanson, 2 Deputy Chiefs, where did you both go? Okay, Tony Cavallo and Jeremy Mothy, and then HR, Jen McMahon, we have Larry Gunderson, IS, and then Chief Jim Keegan, Police. So did I miss any of my staff? Because I would never want to do that. Okay, as I said, we'll save questions for the end, so we'll just roll into the presentation. The goal here today is, first of all, I hope you all felt good coming in here today about your city, our city. I want you to feel better when you leave here. So that's the main goal, and if you don't, see me afterwards or blame one of the council members for maybe some of the decisions they made. So moving on, so as I said, I want you to feel good, and I'm hoping many of you here are here because you feel good. Lisa Garhan, as I mentioned, she's our public relations guru, marketing, everything, communications, and in our last survey of residents, 99% of the people that live here feel good about the community they live in. That's huge. Would we like it to be 100%? Yes? Okay. That's our goal, is to make everyone that lives here feeling good about that, feeling good about living here. But it does require planning, and I think oftentimes, we're all in the day-to-day, these directors certainly are, and our council members are, and we do plan, and it's purposeful planning. We live in a community that was founded in 1834, and we want to plan around the history and the traditions that we hold dear to us and that are important to St. Charles, while also doing things that make our city grow, to be successful, and to make it a vibrant place to live, work, and play. And that's what we strive on. We have lots of representation from the Park District today, the library. I don't know if we have anyone from the school, Forest Preserve. We want all of these entities and all the work that we all do to make it a great place for people to live in St. Charles. So as I mentioned, purposeful planning, we don't just get up in the morning and make decisions. We did have a strategic plan, and I know Rita Payleitner's here. She was one of our council members as part of the strategic plan. We adopted it last year, and it's a 5-year strategic plan. And most of everything I talk about today is going to lay out what the priorities of that strategic plan are and what we're doing to achieve those, as well as our guiding principles and some of the things you may or may not have heard about that we are also doing. Okay, strategic priority number 1 is balanced and thoughtful development. And I'm going to walk us through a little bit about our commercial development, residential development, and a sector that not many people talk about in our city is the industrial and manufacturing sector, which is a huge and important sector. This slide right here is just a few of our businesses that have opened in the last year. Now, good and the bad of this is we do not have a business license. So we don't always know when a business opens, and we don't always know when a business closes. So here are some of the businesses, and I'm only going to call out a few because I think it represents the fact that we do have new construction here, but if you look at Hunt House or Whiskey Bend or Maple Leaf, these are businesses that have repurposed or renovated an existing structure, and that's huge. If you drive into our downtown, there aren't really that many vacant spaces. And when there are, many of these like businesses come in, renovate, and bring something new to our community that we all enjoy. The next slide is around commercial development that is coming to the city. So many of you probably know, and if you don't, you may have felt the pain when you're trying to park downtown, when you see the old Blue Goose parking lot under construction, but that will be the opening of Whole Foods. And they have told us, spring of 2025, all of us would like it open sooner. However, we know that that's coming, and we're really excited about that. If you know anything, and I know there's some realtors here, Bill Brooks, if you know anything about the market or have read any real estate information, Forbes had released an article a few years ago about Whole Foods coming into a community that property values go up within the first year that they open. So for many of us on council, this was a work in progress, and we were excited to have that open. Fox Haven Square is a relatively new project, and they are set to go in front of Plan Commission on June 4th. This is the property that is south of Jewel and a little bit west of Jewel as well, so that open lot of land behind on the border. That is the Greco family, and they're also part owners here. They are going to be bringing commercial type restaurants and some other shops potentially. One of the letters of intent we currently have is the Hampton Social, so if any of you have heard of that. What we believe that will bring to the east side of the city is some entertainment and food options for a growing area of our community. And I'm sure everyone wonders about the Pheasant Run demolition. We get a call every day from the Daily Herald if it has started. So the update on that, that's the frontage piece. You see that tower sitting there, not blowing in the wind any longer, but just sitting there. There's so much history, and I know that's been kind of a pain point for many people. I mean, my aunt and uncle got married there. They don't even live here. They live in Georgia, and they were talking about it, calling me about Pheasant Run. So the resort is still mostly demolished, but we should be hearing about that any day, we say. The crane is up, so maybe when you leave here today, you'll ride past and there'll be demolition happening. There are that is not owned by the city. Many times people think things like, and we'll get into that, Charleston Mall and Pheasant Run, they have owners, and so we do have to go through a process with them. There are many developers interested in that property. We just know that it probably is going to have to take until that demolition occurs before really anything is solidified there. But we're confident that there'll be some development moving in that direction. This next piece should have a social media page of its own because you see it on what's happening in St. Charles all the time. What's happening with Charleston Mall? There's been so many things flying around, and I know there's many of us that would like to correct some of the information, but we stay off that. That is currently under contract with Urban Street Developers, and they are the developer who had done the Motorola campus over in Schaumburg. Topgolf is not coming, just in case you were wondering. So that would probably be a mix of residential and commercial. As I mentioned on the previous slide, the Greco development is mostly restaurant, and that's adjacent to Charleston Mall. That will be coming to Plan Commission June 4th. We anticipate in the next couple of months, City Council seeing a concept plan for the mall. So that's where that stands right now. You're probably familiar with Chipotle across the street. They will be moving to the outlots around where Cooper's Hawk and the rest of some of that commercial development is over there. The other portion of Pheasant Run that you've seen buildings going up on, and as I mentioned before, a huge part of our thoughtful development is with manufacturing and industrial, and the Business Alliance, who has many representatives here today, and our development department, have been touring at manufacturing and industrial businesses in mostly around Tyler, Kirk, and Couts Corridor over there. But as you would know, where the golf course was, Pheasant Run has an industrial park going up. And that is also Greco and DeRosa development. And so currently 400,000 square feet are completed, but there's still more yet to be developed. Tiger Dry Lake, and I know Mr. Schramm is here today, and we were just out there for an expansion project there. We just met last week with Compact. They're looking to expand in the industrial area. So we know that our industrial and manufacturing businesses, it's a huge component of our sector, and we try to visit those businesses because sometimes they're not often the ones that get recognition like our restaurants and downtown are. And on the other side of this commercial or residential is very important. So as I mentioned earlier, we are St. Charles, we're unique, and we care about our heritage and tradition. We also care about growing. And why this is important is because all of these businesses that I mentioned earlier on the slides, in order for those businesses to be successful, we do need people. And so if you look here, this is a wide variety, some of them which have already been developed, unit set of residential development that are coming. Many of you, and I know Jamie Munns was with me at the ribbon cutting of the Springs, I know that there are 320 units and many already are leased there. We're finding that a wide variety of residential development is what people are looking for, so combination of single family homes, townhomes. As you know, the old lamp factory is under development as well, so again, repurposing some of our existing structures to be something unique. We're very excited about the residential yet to come. Strategic priority number 2 is community engagement. This is a piece of our community engagement. We are trying to be better at communicating with you all. Sometimes I know it's easy for government or municipalities to just expect people to come to them. We need to do a better job at coming to you with information. So as we are growing and becoming a better place to live, work, and play, so do our tools and resources that communicate with you need to be better. So I know Lisa's team and Larry's team are working on online experience upgrades so we can do a better job at sending alerts to you, meeting alerts. Our city council constantly talks about that, and it's nice having a diverse group of city council members, some that are new to council and some that have been around for a while, so that we can, they bring a new perspective on what communication tools might work for the residents in our city. Again, improving our online experience, and I guess if you have any problems with the online billing system that just was released, go talk to Larry and Bill today. But we just launched our new utility billing system, and we're working on a new economic development website to come in the future. Communications, and I do want to call out, because there are library folks here, that picture, I know it has nothing to do with community engagement, but this is a project that you can contact the St. Charles Library, and they can help you create some wonderful item which we used for our volunteers. This springed out of an intergovernmental meeting that we just had, and we gave one of these to all our volunteers. But thank you to the library for that. But again, it's communications, communicating with other bodies of government, communicating with people. We do that through social media. Not always the best place, but what we try to push out is information that's factual. So if you ever have any questions about what you may see on social media, certainly contact us if it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We try and be on all the social media platforms that appease and are interested for all ages of residents. We have a monthly newsletter, so sign up. That's Lisa's plug for the day. And we have many press releases, and we've been seen on a lot of the Chicago media outlets through the work that we do, the work of the Alliance, various bodies I know that the Park District's been on because of cicadas. We talked about that. Hopefully we don't have them, but we're constantly featured. We are one of the go-to cities for the suburban market. And then access to public meetings. I know Rita Paler, we've talked about this a lot with the council, is how do we make our meetings more accessible for people? If someone can't attend, how can they easily watch the city council meeting? How can they access it later? We encourage everyone to attend in person every Monday night. So we're working on various vehicles to make that a better experience for you all, and we appreciate your patience as we do that, as we continue to work through upgrading our technology. And then community engagement. Most people, most residents, for good or for bad, may only engage with the community in instances with our fire and police departments. So I do want to give them a lot of credit for the work they do on the safety end. Here's a few things that I know our police department has given us to put up here. What I will say is Friday is Cop on a Rooftop, and that will support Special Olympics, and that's at the Dunkin' Donuts on Main Street. So please support that. But they do a lot in the community. They may, and they oftentimes are the first line of contact when someone is having a mental health crisis or a mental health issue. So we appreciate the work you do and the grants they continue to apply for things that the city continually has to pay for, so that hopefully that doesn't increase your taxes. So they do look for those grants, and they do a lot in the community, obviously around safety, but so much more. The fire department, as I mentioned a few minutes ago about intergovernmental meetings, I'm gonna throw that intergovernmental meeting out there again because Mike Keys, who's here, sorry Mike, didn't mean to call you out this morning, but he had told us a story at the last meeting about a staff member that had to save an individual's life on the soccer fields. And he had given us, informed us of the opportunity that our fire department had been there and how calm you all were and how you handled the situation, how you made the staff person feel at ease. I've gone on a ride along, Jamie has too, and we've seen the same thing. So I hear in the community constantly when we're out with individuals that how they appreciate all the work they do. And many people, and even I learned this, you know, firefighters aren't just firefighters. Majority of them are EMTs. So they're often not in fire calls. They are oftentimes in calls where it's a life or death situation beyond fire. So just want to take a second, if everyone doesn't mind, giving the safety professionals a round of applause. Thank you. And then community engagement events. Many of you know the events at the Business Alliance. Thank you for all the work you do. They're essentially our special events line. And 30 events, these are not all the events in the city. These are the events that primarily require city services, which can be police, fire, and public works. So again, beyond all the jobs that they do, they are working to make sure events are safe. You wouldn't believe the amount of work and time that goes into parades. Chief Keegan knows, and I know Chief Swanson and his team know too. Just to make sure, based on things that happen in other communities, we constantly have to be living and learning to make events safer for you all. Last year, as I mentioned safety, I know maybe an unpopular decision at the moment, but moving fireworks to a different location, some of that has to do with safety. And so if your safety is not our primary concern, then we're not doing our job. So we do have to work to make sure that happens, and we constantly work with the Park District and the county on different events that are hosted beyond these 30 events in our town, in our city, so that we can make sure that they are safe. And fun, of course. We love our events in the city of St. Charles, and we're often known because of those events in other communities. Infrastructure improvements is part of our strategic priority. Number 3, it's organizational resiliency. So I will tell you that when I'm out in different communities with mayors, and we often get together and talk, they look at us and they say, we're going to compete with you. We're doing this, we're doing that. We see what you're doing on First Street, or we see what you're doing at various events in the community and how you're growing walkability and bikeability. And so we know in order to keep up and be competitive to make this a place that people want to live and work and come to, we need to be resilient. And one of those infrastructure improvements was the First Street Plaza. Now this was a $6.4 million project. 1.5 of it was raised by private donations. It's a public-private partnership concept. And if any of you were out over the last couple of weeks when it was sunny, and I'm getting reports back from restaurants and just people utilizing that plaza, it's been extremely successful thus far. So we're looking at people utilizing that this summer. From a more technical standpoint, I know that, and Brian Werball's not here today, but David, you've been a part of that, is our 2024 street program, is investing more dollars into making sure that our streets are surfaced and proper, and Peter spends a lot of time on the plan for that, so that has been a larger investment than it has been in years. There are several council members that have been very interested and have held the bikeability, walkability study. The pedestrian bike plan is a priority of ours. We are trying to make not just downtown, I know Tom Anderson's here, so Tom's a big part of that too, and so is Chris, at making sure that we have the proper signage so people know where to go, so that bikeability, walkability, all of that is convenient for people visiting our city as well as living there. Things that are on the horizon are a crosswalk that's been talked about at Illinois. That'll be coming soon, so that may be a question we get today. Other infrastructure improvements, and Mr. Marth had asked this question, and some of you may be wondering the same thing. I know that you received a letter from the EPA, or from us, but as a requirement from the EPA. Don't freak out, we're not Flint, Michigan. We will be sending information out that further explains that from the city of St. Charles, so I know that may be a question from all of you, but it's a required letter that we have to send. These are some other infrastructure projects. You've probably been down where the bike path is, on where Public Works is, and seen that enhancement to where the Riverside lift station is, on Riverside. And then as we have new and more development, we also have to upgrade our electric substations and things that have to do with infrastructure. Many of these things, as development has since blossomed and burst in our community, along with that comes pains of upgrading our infrastructure. And then Jen's here today, and I know that Heather and Jen and I and some of the council members, we're always looking at recruiting employees and keeping the employees we have, and we do that often by going to the schools. We've been at North, we've been at East, we go to Thompson. We really encourage students in our community to think about public service in any way, elected and or being hired for a municipality as an option for their future. We do also pride ourselves on that we hire military veterans, that 10% of our workforce is made up by veterans. We discuss it all the time and talk with our veteran centers about that. And even just through this year, we've onboarded 52 employees. And we constantly filling vacancies within, whether it's Public Works Department or any of our other public service positions. Strategic priority number 4 is Bill Hanna's favorites, financial wellness. It's also Ryan Bongard's favorite. There you are. We continue to maintain a strong financial position. Our budget is $226 million, and most of that is made up by public safety and essential services that you all receive. So I always think it's funny to read this. We produced our award-winning financial reports. I mean, that sounds like, you should come up for an award right now. It's the popular annual financial report. Some of you may know what that is. But we do pride ourselves on, and I know this council does work really hard at making sure we are spending money on the right things, guided by the strategic plan, as I mentioned earlier, to make sure that we're providing the services you all deserve. Last year we did increase the local sales tax, which it's estimated about half of that. Tax revenue is paid for by visitors and commuting workers and non-city businesses, but we're at a 1.5% tax rate, which is about a 0.5% increase. What that really means is 50 cents on every $100. So we have made some increases to help us offset the cost of things like the street program that you just saw on a previous slide. But I know Director Hanna works hard to make sure that our city budget is balanced and that we're providing services that we need to our community. We have 10 taxing bodies in the city of St. Charles, and this is just a quick slide to give you a snapshot about where we fall. We are about 10%, if you can't see this, I'm sorry, about 10% of the tax bill of the city of St. Charles that you receive. Majority of that right here in this pie chart goes to public safety. So I'll leave it up for, I know someone was just taking a photo. But so that does give a description of where what makes up your tax bill and how we utilize those dollars. And then, as I mentioned, we have priorities, strategic priorities, and I outlined those. We also have guiding principles of our strategic plan. And I will read these because they're a little bit hard to see on the PowerPoint, but our strategic plan guiding principles are excellence, engagement and inclusion, sustainability and resilience, sense of community, stewardship and accountability, and respect. And many of the things I'm about to talk about fall in all of them. We've recently, in partnership with the Park District, launched the Dam Task Force, might I call it that? The task, we refer to it as that. It's a task force that we have appointed several alder people, individuals of the community, Park District support to better engage in the process of what should happen with the dam. So we are not rushing to make that decision. The Park District and the city are working together at making sure we have all the information that we would need to make an informed decision. These task force meetings are open to the public, and the next one is June 6th at 6 p.m. There have already been 2, and there'll continue to be more over the course of the next year. So again, I know that's a hot topic amongst our community, but we have received feedback from residents that the fact that we are going through this process to engage public input is definitely positive in making that decision. IMEA contract discussions. We've already had 2 meetings for committee of the council on that. You're welcome to those public meetings. On May 28th, there'll be the next meeting. Peter, you're focusing on, what is next is the contract? Alternatives. So energy alternative or power alternatives, we'll be discussing at that meeting, so that might be of interest to many of you. But again, we don't want to make this decision lightly. We want the public to feel engaged in the process. We want you to have all the information that we have when we make this decision so that we can make the most informed decision. The Equity Inclusion Commission. This was something that was very important to me to launch in the last year, and there's some members of that. Chris Anderson's a member of that commission. There are a few others of you here today. There are many reasons for that. We do get approached, and I see there are 2 students here today. We do get approached by students in the community that what are we doing to make people feel included in this community? And so that was one reason. Another reason is I will tell you that there are financial decisions to do this. We often, in all of our grants, even in fire accreditation, had gotten asked if we have anything or are we doing anything around equity and inclusion. And so this is our work that we are in making informed decisions and getting public input. Again, public engagement, public input is one of our, obviously through engagement and inclusion is one of our guiding principles. So what's next? And I'm probably not going to cover all of this. Derek probably heard something this morning that I may not know about now. Chick-fil-A is coming, so that was something that was really of interest from students, and that will be coming where the old Chili's is on Main Street. McGrath Kia, I know McGrath Honda was on the other side. McGrath Kia is coming, and they will be coming over in the Pheasant Run frontage. Thorne's gas station, I believe they have a ribbon cutting tomorrow morning, I think. They are opening, and they are at the corner of Dunham. And then, as I mentioned, concept for Charleston Mall, we'll keep you all posted. How you find out when meetings are, or certainly contacting your alderman. We will release when topics that of interest are coming to a city council meeting. We do put them on social media, and then they're always posted on our city's website under calendar items, and you can find the agendas there. So when that topic comes up, we hope to see you. New websites, various economic development, city website. Again, as we talked about, engaging with the public and making our meetings a better opportunity or better situation to be in, as we are looking at upgrades to and renovations to our city council chambers so that when you're listening to us at home, you can actually hear us. Improving ADA accessibility, and then modernizing fire stations 2 and 3 are on the horizon. These are just basically St. Charles and the numbers. You can see the amount of residents we have. I won't touch on all of these. That number is growing, as you would have seen on the first slide. We have at least 1,100 new residential developments coming, or residential units. These are how many, Peter, I'm sure you gave us these stats. Millions of water gallons are pumped. Millions of wastewater, water is treated in wastewater plants. The number of police calls we get, the number of fire calls. These are just some of the information that obviously the property taxes and the money that we put into our budget go to help make sure happen. I think that's all we have here in information. I know I went through it very quickly because I wanted to make sure we all had time for questions. I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you all had come out today, and your input is very important to us. In my tenure, again, as I mentioned, in my 2 years and then my 4 years as council member, this is the first time we've done this. The chamber does do an event like this. It's for businesses, and it's hosted in the fall, and we'll continue to do that as well. So we hope to see many of you there for that. With that, I will open it up to questions. Yes, sure.
So we have a dam opportunity or a dam to deal with.
Yeah.
Whether it's kept or demolished, and I doubt it'll be either one explicitly. Something will be remaining, and it occurs to me that people spend a lot of money and go to places where they have nice water features. I'd like to see if there's a dam, part of it, all of it, kept. Consider the lighting at the top of the city hall that could make it an attractive water feature. It's right already there. Just put the lights in.
Yes, so that was more of a comment. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Good comment. Any other questions? Yes. Do you mind passing this down? Thank you.
What are the plans for the police department, the old building.
Yes. And I'll hand this over to Russ and Derek, but I do know that the last committee meeting, we did talk about an RFP release that the council approved for contracting work. Do you want to talk specifically about that, Derek? Heather? Whoever.
Thank you. We approved on Monday at the committee level, actually, I'm sorry, City Council approved a site feasibility study. So right now what we are doing is going through the technical analysis on that. That's going to include things like traffic analysis, geotechnical, floodplain, all of those items, and that'll give us a better idea of what is actually attainable for that site and what makes sense for that site, rather than going the step of the RFP and getting the proposals in that already dictate what kind of zoning or use would be appropriate for that site. We want to start on the front end first so we can have that discussion about what the council deems a fit for that site.
Does that help you? Good, okay. Anyone else? Yes. Let's see. Ricky, do you mind? Thank you.
Hi, I just had a question about Kirk Road. You had mentioned in one of your slides about traffic feasibility and biking lanes. I would love to bike on Kirk Road, but the traffic is just incredible. So I was just wondering if there's anything about that.
I think Alderperson Munns would like to bike on Kirk Road too.
Yeah, as the mayor did mention, we did just complete a pedestrian bike plan, and we're really excited to start implementing some of those ideas that came out of that plan. That specifically, I'm not quite sure where we're at with it, but certainly good input, and I think that we're going to have further conversation next year about which one of those recommendations fit into our plan and into our budget.
And you can actually access that plan on our website and see all the community engagement feedback that was given and what the plan is and what our low-hanging fruit to achieve soon. And I know that our city council will be approving some of those things. But as always, that feedback is important because we know we didn't address everything in that plan, but that some of the portions of that street might be included in that plan. Yes. Thank you.
So staying with that topic, is there anything in the plan on the Union Pacific line that runs from east side to the west side?
Do you want to talk about that?
Thank you. We have been working with our state legislators and the Park District for, what are we on, 10 plus years on that, Holly? There's been some complications about acquisitions for that specific parcel. It is a privately owned parcel, and Union Pacific has a price point at which they think is appropriate to sell that. The county, I believe, Forest Preserve, negotiated a piece for that, and they were the first piece in that. And then when the Park District portion got to that, they changed the price on it. It is a little bit exorbitant at this point, so we are trying to work with their rep. They've got a new rep in place to actually get a little bit more manageable of a price point on that so we can continue the acquisitions that would be necessary to actually connect that.
I think there's a question over there.
What are we doing to increase pedestrian safety? For example, on 2nd and Walnut, I got hit by a car in the past. My sister got hit by a car, and it seems like we need more stop signs or things to prevent drivers from speeding through downtown. It's become an issue, especially when it's 25 miles an hour, and even on Main Street, it's really dangerous to cross when I'm going to walk my dog in the morning. And so what are we doing to address this? Like, could we do speed lights or more stop signs? I know it's annoying to inconvenience traffic on North Avenue or even just in that downtown area, but it's just become more dangerous in the last 5 years. And like I said, I got hit by a car, my sister got hit by a car with her boyfriend walking, and no one should be getting hit by cars.
Well, first, I'm sorry about that happening to you. I do apologize. I think this is probably a multiple answer between a couple of different departments here, both public safety. I know police chief and I talk about, sometimes the perception of bringing a stop sign to a community has the opposite effect, and not suggesting that that's not the solution. But I think, Derek, you probably have an answer to some of that.
One of the things I was just going to jump in with real quick is the pedestrian study is designed to address some of those concerns. We have a number of improvements that are made, and it's not as simple as just installing stop signs or flashing lights. There's some infrastructure concerns with that. So I will turn it over to the chief regarding some enforcement protocols that we're kind of working on going through as well.
We do our best to enforce accordingly. Anytime we look at signage, we have to follow what's called the MUTCD, which is the Manual for Uniform traffic control devices, and that's a national standard, so we can't just silly-willy erect a stop sign or a yield sign. So your input's important. We do our best to target our enforcement accordingly, and I'll keep that in mind and pass that along to the troops.
Kim has a question in the back. Okay.
Hi guys, my name's Kimberly. I'm from Kimmer's Ice Cream right downtown. Obviously, you guys know there's a lot of parking issues where Whole Foods is going in. So I think it's super flattering that they're even coming to our city, and I think you all should be too. This is the best place to do business. I was wondering if a small solve or something the city would consider would be more signage for parking and just like advertising that it's free. There's a lot of cities that you have to pay for parking, and I don't think that new people or even residents realize that not only is it free, but there's actually an abundance in those lots that the city beautifully built. So just wondering if there's any thought on that improvement while we wait for the Whole Foods to open up.
Good point, Kimberly. Appreciate that.
I think
Darren?
you hit on one of the low-hanging fruit things
Yes.
we're trying to tackle. We know that there's some lack of signage and some inconsistencies in the signage that we're working on addressing in the next fiscal year.
Yeah, I can just add to that. So actually this past Monday, we did present our parking study, and one of the no-brainers was additional wayfinding signage. So we did put some dollars into this year's budget to accomplish that. Originally, we were thinking we would hire a consultant to kind of map that out for us, but we actually think staff can do it quicker and cheaper. So that's something that we're looking to implement immediately.
Mike, do you mind passing it down the row? Thank you.
Hello. My name is Richard Feiss. I'm in Ward 3. And I've lived just north of Boy Scout Island for 20 years. And coming out of my driveway has gotten worse and worse with more and more traffic, more and more building around. And I guess they're proposing some more apartments in that near Red Gate that they're talking about concept-wise. But a few weeks ago, I went out of my driveway. I was going south on 31. Motorcycle came around, hit the front of my car, okay, spun him. He went close, all the way down. It was such a blur, too. He went all the way down by Fearsome Creek Fen before he stopped. Never hit his brakes. God lucky he lived. Plus, he had a girl in the back. I didn't even see that there was a girl in back. He was going so fast. I'm right on the S curve right there, okay? And all the way up to Boy Scout Island, they increased the speed. Going down 31 the other way, they decreased the speed. What can be done about that? My driveway is somewhat hidden, and I got the ticket, by the way.
Boy, I guess I'm pretty popular today. I apologize you had to go through that, sir. So, Route 31 is a state route. We have most of the enforcement along that corridor. There is some that's unincorporated, so we share that responsibility with the sheriff's office. But once again, we do our best with engineering, signage, enforcement. Well, I'll talk to you offline after the event, sir, and I'll make sure your concerns are addressed, and we can speak to that. But just like the last complaint, obviously we take everyone's safety very seriously, and with this feedback, I'll definitely go back to the department and talk to the officers. And
Todd Hewell, I share the concerns with the gentleman behind me. I live along 31 as well. I won't get into the townhomes redevelopment, but that is an issue along 31 that I've been looking into, so I would hope the city would continue to make sure that zoning is appropriate for the area. But my direct question is the redevelopment of the old police station. If you could maybe quell some rumors, I hope these are rumors, but there were plans to get rid of the old brick building, possibly the city building, but I had also heard people wanting to get rid of the actual historic tower. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about that, how those plans go through, or what's considered historic, because I would hope that any redevelopment plan would not get rid of the historical municipal tower. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I can tell you one thing, and I think City Council is sitting here nodding their heads. There has been no discussion on any of those plans, any of that detail at all. So no one has entertained anything to that sort. I can confirm that here. We're simply at the stage now where we want to get information to know essentially what absolutely can't go there, or what the infrastructure potentially could be that we could even put on that site. So City Council is doing their due diligence and making sure they have all the information, because oftentimes when some areas so cared about by so many, ideas get flown around and they evolve into something completely different. So we're trying to make sure we get the information out there, like we said today, that assures you that we are really thoughtfully planning on that site and gathering as much information as we can to then make a thoughtful decision. But I'm sure you have maybe something else.
Just
there?
one quick add-on is that the current RFP that we have listed does not include any portion of the municipal building, even for the site analysis. It's all that back portion, parking lot back to the old police station.
Yep. Anyone else? Oh, I think John, yeah, I remember John, and then we'll get to you, sir.
I was pleased to see a mention of the IMEA contract, which most people in the room might not be familiar with, but I'm interested in that. And just more widely on energy and infrastructure and climate change. I think you're aware that I participated in the Kane County Climate Action Team last year, and they encouraged us to bring this attention to our cities. And even though the county does not have influence in the cities, the idea is we all need to get serious about the climate. And I think we all know that it's monthly, it's getting worse and worse. So we're doing a lot of tactics, but we need strategy. So I was just wondering how we can get that moving in St. Charles further.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a lot of what you just mentioned, I think probably all of us have received emails in the last day or so regarding that. We've gotten several residential emails, and I know that's something that we provide to staff then, and it potentially would be a committee agenda item or a workshop agenda item, so we can discuss that. But I think it's a matter of getting staff to look at what the various options are and what we as a municipality can do in conjunction with just laws and policies that the state has, and of course by federal too. But that is definitely something that in conjunction with IEMA we'll be looking at. It's important to our city and important to our residents. Yep. Yes.
In regards to the climate action plan, we do have 2 staff members assigned to that, so we're just at the very beginning stages of working on implementing that and bringing that forward to City Council.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for hosting us today. This is great. As a 29-year resident of Charlemagne subdivision, the Charlestown Mall has always been a big part of that whole area there. It's great to see the East Side development plans. That's fantastic. But could you give a current update and expand a little bit on what's the status of the Charlestown Mall redevelopment? It's just pretty significant impact.
Sure. So currently, as the mayor did say, that is a piece of property that is not owned by the city. It's owned by a group out of California, and it is under contract with a developer called Urban Street Group. And they've been trying to kind of figure out this site for the past year and a half. I've worked for a couple municipalities. This is probably the toughest site that I've come across that wasn't severely environmentally challenged. Really, it's because of, one, just the structure of the building. Malls aren't really being developed anymore. Some are being redeveloped, but each one has its own challenges. Existing conditions for this one is getting worse, and also you have very complicated infrastructure around it, specifically utilities. You also have a site that, as you go away from Route 64, it drops like this. Not very ideal for commercial, because they all want that visibility. That being said, Urban Street is committed. They have looked at a couple of different versions of how this site could work and bounce it off the city, but we haven't quite found one that fits, both from a land use point of view and honestly, more of a bigger issue is financially for them and for the city. But they are taking a run at it again right now, and we're optimistic that we're going to see something that may be a little bit more scaled down, but will at least get the project kind of off the ground.
Hi, my name is Kathy McGinley. Yes, we moved here in 2011, and the Charlestown Mall is, it was nice when we moved here, and then it just went downhill. But my husband and I were talking about it. What about Von Mar and the cinemas? We don't understand how that can be part of the equation. And 2 other questions real quick I want to add. I've emailed the city about, I'd come from 88 to St. Charles on Kirk Road. There's no sign to say it's St. Charles. Always been confused by that. And my other question is about 5G. You see the towers popping up, which is troublesome to me. I don't know about anybody else. But is there any part of the St. Charles website that shows like where the little spots are popping up, like on telephone poles, that are going to affect our brains, maybe?
Do you know the answer? Might be you and then you.
Next to the front. Okay, so for the first question in regards to Charlestown Mall, Von Mar does own their pad and they intend to stay. They're very happy with that location. It's a successful location for them. So I think that just adds a little bit of complexity to this site, as Derek was speaking about. In addition to the cinemas, they also are leasing their space but desire to stay. So some of the complication with selling that property is keeping those two businesses operational, cutting off the rest of the mall, and then making sure that their facades are capable of keeping them sustained while the rest of the construction is occurring. So those two locations do want to stay, and we are trying to work with the developer to accomplish that. In regards to the signage, I think you're hitting on some of the same points we've been talking about with upgrading our signage and making things more consistent, but the difficulty with that location you're talking about coming east on 64 from the
Kirk.
Is that a
Kirk 80.
So we would have to get easements in place, and sometimes some of the agencies that would have to grant us those easements or license agreements aren't willing to in those specific locations for a variety of reasons. It's something that we've encountered amongst a bunch of different sites across the city trying to get some of that welcome signage in place.
Peter made the 5G question.
I think we have.
Hi. Regarding the 5G transmitters, so we are required under state law to issue utility permits to any qualified utility providers, including telecommunication providers. So those are permitted when they're installed. We don't have a lot of influence over where they're located or how they're situated, but we're required to issue permits for those. They're regularly installed generally on existing infrastructure. Throughout the community. There isn't necessarily a tracking listing because once they're installed, they're really property of the utility provider.
You mentioned First Street and successful. So two-parter. One, how do you measure success there? Like that, you know it's successful. And then from the light there, has there ever been discussion or looking into any pedestrian overpass of some sort to get rid of the light and maybe decrease the pedestrians at 31 also, and safety?
You could start, but you're talking about the lights on First Street or lights on 64, or Main? 64. Okay.
We currently have a permit out with IDOT to revise that intersection. We're going to take out the concrete pork chop that's right there and then revise the lighting, but that does not include any pedestrian overpass. It would just be to make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly, as well as eliminating the unnecessary traffic signal there.
First Street. Yeah, okay.
I know the city council has talked about that in years past. It's a very, very high cost and a difficult engineering prospect to accomplish that. So it's just never been something that's made it past the discussion stages. And then as far as the success on First Street, Derek, you want to?
Yep.
Sure. I mean, obviously, we're looking for feedback from the community members. Honestly, when I probably go out there every single night at this point, we see a lot of people. We see a lot of people doing outdoor dining, which is great. That supports the business. It supports our local sales tax. But also, there's a large public space there, and we do see people enjoying that too. Of course, you know, if you're someone who's a little bit more data-driven, we can, of course, look at how much those businesses are pulling in sales tax and try to see year over year, is that increasing?
Also, one other thing to add to that, City Council in committee just the other day had looked at a policy for the public space to see who would like to utilize it and what types of group we allow to use that public space for events. So we'll be monitoring that over the next couple of years to how successful or what's the interest of having events there, what kinds of events. And then the Business Alliance does look at the data around that, like financial impact regarding those events. So that's how I think we'll get to that over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Hi, so I know you mentioned one of your pillars is environmental sustainability, and one thing that I've noticed with just us having more outdoor seating, which is great. I love being outside and enjoying life on a patio, but specifically around areas that are along the river. I'm going to call out Flagship specifically. There's been a lot more cigarette butts all around the river, and it's really causing pollution into our waterways. Like there's literally a drain, and then there's cigarette butts that are coming down. So my first question is, what are we doing to have businesses be more intentional with this increased traffic and people smoking and just littering outside? Like it's going directly in the river. You have to be blind to not see that piece of the puzzle. But even with specific events, like when we host Christmas, we see trees, which are absolutely beautiful, decorated with ornaments, and it's lovely to walk down, but I often see those things in the river as well. And it doesn't seem like the river is such a focal point in our city, but we're not doing much to actually regulate the pollution that's around it, and whether it's educating businesses or creating certain rules. I just would love to know, what are we doing to prevent more pollution that's happening in the river?
Thank you.
This is one of the first times I've heard that specifically, and I would love to say as a staff member, we know everything that's going on at every moment in the city, and we just unfortunately don't. So getting this feedback is really important for us so we can address these things, especially via our special events policies and permits, to make sure that we are tackling some of these things and making sure that we're addressing these as they happen, so we can work with code enforcement to follow up on this and do a little bit more patrol and looking at that area a little closer.
I also think River Corridor Foundation does a cleanup day too, that they focus on the river, and September 21st. And that may not get to the solution you're looking for, but I believe, this group does take steps, so does the Park District, and hopefully making those things happen. And no doubt we could do a better job, and I think that's good feedback that you're providing today. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Linda Stewart. I've lived in St. Charles my whole life. That gives me the perspective to say the St. Charles fireworks show was primo around the whole state, if not the whole nation. The reflection of the fireworks in the river was magical, and I shared it with my children, grandchildren, and I asked why it was moved, and I was told for safety and that there would be so much more parking. And the day of the fireworks, all the parking lots were closed. All my friends and neighbors, because I asked, I'm saying, am I the only one that's not happy? And I found many, many people were upset that they lost the beauty and majestic presentation that Boy Scout Island gave. And I was wondering if there's a way to have citizens come together with the police and the city to find a way to put that back, because people wandered all over St. Charles trying to find a place to see the fireworks through the trees. There was no parking. It was, to me, a disaster, but maybe only to the people who have lived here so long and seen what it was.
And before I hand it over to the chief, I just want to say that that decision was not come across lightly. There was a lot of discussion between the Park District as well as city safety personnel before that decision was made. But I'll turn it over to the chief to kind of address some of the rationale on why.
Oh, yeah, you can hand that. Why don't you hand that? Yeah.
Definitely on the hot seat a little bit today. I think I need a firefighter. To Heather's point, that was definitely a decision that we really took to heart. We had a lot of collaborative meetings with a lot of the stakeholders. We talked a little bit about learning from events that take place elsewhere. And I don't just want to point to Highland Park or, for instance, what took place in Wisconsin, in the Milwaukee area with the parade, but a lot of the things that we do in public safety is we attend events and we learn from those events. We do what's called a hot wash or a debrief. And one of the things we learned and we looked at was Pot Park, for instance, Potawatomi Park, has one point of ingress and egress, and that is got a steep grade change to it. To get people evacuated, not only in an incident that I just mentioned, but also in a weather event, would be very difficult to get people out and emergency responders in. So we wanted to keep something central downtown with more availability and access for not only public safety, but our spectators. Once again, it was a tough decision to make, but in the interest of public safety and really getting people in and out, the river walk under the train trestle, and then just that grade change. If someone were to evacuate, let's say in a weather event, it would be very difficult to get pedestrians on foot back to their cars, and then, like I said, emergency responders in. With that feedback that you provided, and we did hear some different things about parking and accessibility, but one of the benefits that I wanted to point out, and I know it's not popular, that where we moved them, which is Langham Park, provided a lot of different areas to watch the fireworks, whether that's Mount St. Mary's or greater downtown, and even some of the local schools. So we did actually hear quite a bit of positive feedback as well. Once again, the decision wasn't taken lightly, and I do appreciate the feedback.
And I don't want to put Holly on the spot right now, but I know that this being the first year that we did it, we're still making some adjustments, and we're still trying to tweak that a little bit to make it the best experience for the residents and all the visitors as we can. And one of the things that I know the Park District is working on is sort of a structure that you can see in advance of the actual fireworks. And Holly, do you want to talk about that a little bit? But that way people can see in advance of the event where they can actually see the fireworks from, so that they know and they can pick out their spots. And I think that was a little bit of the concern last year, is people picking spots and then realizing after the fact they couldn't see them.
One of the things that we are doing this year is actually having a similar balloon up in the air, and where it will be is where the fireworks will be shooting. So you'll be able to pick your spot throughout the day. As long as you see the balloon, you know you'll be able to see the fireworks. So that hopefully will help people say where they want to go. We also had people watch the fireworks at Langham, at Mount St. Mary, all through downtown. We had different spotters last year to understand what were the views like, where were there obstructions, and try to figure out to best plan for this year.
Hi, my name is Kelly Anderson, and I've lived in this area for 25 years. And I was also part of the Bike and Walkability Task Force. And if I understood correctly, we can't really know yet what we're going to be doing until we know what monies we have left to work with. One of the words that I keep hearing is safety, and our concerns about pedestrian safety, bikeability safety. Our kids can't bike to their schools for the most part. Bikeability is not just for recreation, it's also to be able to navigate our town. And so my question is, safety also is part of traffic calming. And there are ways to do that besides stoplights. There are bump outs, there are reductions in lanes. There's things we can do that don't necessarily require the state's approval. I would love to hear how we are prioritizing this as a safety issue and not using just money that's left over to see what we can do with, but rather prioritizing this.
The pedestrian plan does have a list of priorities, and they are listed in order of, most easily attainable and most complex. And some of those things that you mentioned, unfortunately, do take budget money. And as much as I would love to do all of those in one year, I mean, we probably have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of improvements, and we have to balance that with all of the other operational needs of the city. So there are projects, those easy ones that we're trying to tackle right now. I know one of them is that crossing at Illinois, just west of the bridge. So we're trying to prioritize some of those high points that we know people are utilizing and tackle those as best we can. But every year there's going to be that budget discussion with City Council to allot a portion of our money to dedicate towards those exact projects.
Did you want to add something, Peter? Go ahead.
I'll just add a little color to that. I know everybody's anxious for this. The plan was actually created over the past year and a half, and it was just approved several months ago. So that was step one, and that's a huge step, is to just have the plan in place. And that's going to also provide us the availability to go out and search for grant dollars with that plan. You need to have that plan to even apply for grants for this type of work. So we're kind of taking a three-prong approach this fiscal year in the plan, and number one is to actually have our consultants and our staff at Public Works go out and actually try to get some grant money to fund some of these capital projects. The second prong is work that you're going to see very soon, probably hopefully by the end of the summer into the fall, and we're going to take a lot of the low-hanging fruit items in the plan to start striping a lot of the streets, putting up new signage, doing some of those things that are easy for our staff to do and for some consultants to do that aren't high dollar costs. And the third thing that we're doing is that we've hired several consultants to actually start to prepare for some of the things that the lady just mentioned on some of the capital improvement projects, the bump outs, the roads that might get narrower to provide space for bike lanes, for stop signs, for stop signals, crossing signals. Some of those capital projects need to be engineered and those take about a year to engineer, and then you can proceed into construction. So there will be some visible improvements on the bike and ped plan this year, with a promise to continue to work on the capital projects and larger projects later, with, of course, support from the city council, which I think is all there right now.
Hi, Claudia Frost. We've lived here 45 years, and a concern I had and a question I have is, does St. Charles have any noise pollution restrictions? It is a safety issue.
Yes, the city does have a noise ordinance and regulations depending on if an area is residential or it's commercial, or if it's a residential area that's near commercial. And that has time restrictions on certain types of activities that generate noise. So there's items identified in the code that noise can't be generated that's heard off of the property during certain hours. And if it is, it's a violation of the code, and that's something that can be reported either to the city during business hours for our code enforcement, or to the police during off hours if something's occurring. There are restrictions in the code for the hours that can occur, but generally that can occur during the daytime hours. It starts, I don't know offhand, but it may start 6 or 7 in the morning and can continue until the evening. But there are limitations in the hours of when it shouldn't be occurring.
I just want to go back to public safety and I guess I'm wondering, have we ever considered, and I guess this might be audacious, but like speed light cameras, because it would require less police officers monitoring speed, but then we can actually make money off of people who are speeding, which I know sometimes we all kind of are running late, but it might be a easier solution versus like stoplights or speed bumps or any of that.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to your question earlier and answer something that you brought up about the cigarette butts and pollution. Besides Public Works and our staff, we also have what's called the Community Restitution Program here in the city. We're the only suburb in Kane County. Anyone who is assigned community service hours works for the city for free as part of their sentence, if you will, or their penance, and they clean city property. We go out every morning and empty garbage, sweep up cigarette butts. So you'll see ladies and gentlemen sometimes in orange smocks or yellow smocks, and they're cleaning the area. So I appreciate your feedback. We try to hit all 4 quadrants of our greater downtown, but I'll take a look at that. In relation to speed cameras, the only legislation that's been enacted to date allows just the city of Chicago to utilize speed cameras. None of the suburban Collier counties or suburbs are allowed to use that type of enforcement.
Hello, Todd Huel again. I was just wondering what the city does and what would you recommend to all the people here? Because we have many layers of government, township, county, city, and then of course our taxing like the park district and school district. So what does the city do now to work with those different jurisdictions, or what would you recommend to the people here to make St. Charles a place people would want to continue to move to?
So you mean you can take that, but what we do to work with other government bodies?
Yeah, so for instance, even Route 31, I know Route 31 and 25 corridor very well.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are state highways, so rather than passing the buck, it's like, what is the city already doing, and what can we do to make sure that those areas are, again, the best place to live, or even township. You look at the map, the township map versus the city, it's almost like gerrymandered, and it's done like that over time, but there's all those levels of government that we need to be worried about. So,
do you want to give some examples or talk about? Count. Yes. Well, so most of our governmental entities, specifically related around St. Charles, do meet monthly, and we meet regularly to talk about whatever issues each of us might be dealing with that might involve one another, and we try to brainstorm ways to obviously make things better and work together. There are definitely ways that staff meets on a county level. I'll give you one example. There was a light on Randall Road that it was brought to us by the public, and we worked with the Kane County Board and Transportation Committee on making an adjustment there. That involved our staff at a police level, our staff at a community development level with zoning, us, even if it isn't our road, we do know that our residents do utilize Randall Road. So sometimes it does take a little more push, So we're constantly working together. I know staff meets on a regular basis with governmental entities in different topics. Obviously, certainly things like you're bringing up today are good feedback to bring to your alderman and or bring to the city staff so that we can address those. Some of them can't always be addressed. They may be out of our control, but we'll definitely work with you to help bring it to the body that may make that decision. But we do assess every one of those decisions. So I don't know if that helps you at all, but your presence at the city council committee meeting the other day, that's important because that's how these individuals make their decisions is based on the feedback they get from residents. One way they assess decisions.
I'm going to try to answer your question with, I've got a lot of things floating around in my head right now, but part of the difficulty I think with planning, and that's really at the root of your question, is that a lot of people believe that if they're in a St. Charles address, they're in the city of St. Charles. So we get a lot of contact points from people frustrated about a development or something that's going on, and they're not actually city of St. Charles residents. And I say that only because we don't actually have control over the land that's outside of our jurisdiction. So we do continue to meet with the county, with the other taxing bodies regularly to make sure that we are working in cooperation. This is exactly why our planning departments are so important, and things like comprehensive planning is so important because it allows us to have those comprehensive looks at planning areas and development areas and make sure that it is really functioning in a way that's best for not only our residents but the residents outside of our jurisdiction, because our intent is to make the entire area better, not just the city of St. Charles, but we only have control over what's within our boundaries.
And sometimes, I'll just throw Leslie under the bus for a minute, like an organization like Metro West brings all of our organizations together, and these are at city by city level and municipality by municipality level. We discuss things, and collectively we can make differences too when it's something that involves a greater or a larger swath of community. So bodies like that do help bring us together to have more power and more voice, and those are usually the voices that represent all of you too.
Again, Rich Weiss, Ward 3. Don't mean to be a pest again, but I have a question about one item of a traffic light that happens to be by La Trattoria restaurant and Hotel Baker. You closed off that street. So is that light really necessary? Can we just put something there for pedestrians to be able to get across, safely, of course, but does that traffic light still need to be there?
Heather's behind you, she can grab that. Yeah.
Thank you. That touches on a little bit of what I was getting into with that IDOT permit before. We are revising that intersection. Unfortunately, that crossing, in order to make that a pedestrian-friendly crossing, there is going to have to be a stoplight there. I realize it's a long-time stoplight. That's under the control of IDOT, not under the control of the city, but we want to make sure that pedestrians do have that access at that point. But that will be removed. I think we're just waiting on the final approval on the permit from IDOT, so any day now, hopefully we should get that. And it's not a long project.
Thank you. Yes.
I just want to say thanks for all of you public officials and all the work you do. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a good segue to a wrap-up. I don't need a microphone. That's a good segue to a wrap-up. I want to thank all of you for giving your feedback, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and unless you're sharing that information, like many of you have today, it's very helpful, and we have many representatives from the other bodies of government here, and I know that some of the feedback does impact them too, so I'm sure they appreciate it. Again, thank you again for coming, and these are your council members. If you ever have anything that you'd like to discuss with them, they're at your availability, as well as our directors here today. So again, thank you and have a great day.